You shrink in their presence, apologize for taking up space, and constantly wonder if you're smart enough, attractive enough, or successful enough to deserve their attention. You scroll through their achievements on social media and feel physically sick with inadequacy, comparing your behind-the-scenes struggles to their highlight reel. Every conversation leaves you feeling diminished, as if their very existence proves your worthlessness. Friedrich Nietzsche understood that feelings of inferiority are not character flaws or signs of low self-esteem. They are symptoms of what he called slave morality, a psychological framework that measures your worth against external standards rather than your own authentic values. You feel inferior because you've unconsciously adopted a moral system designed to keep you submissive and dependent on others for validation. The person who constantly feels inferior has internalized what Nietzsche recognized as a deep resentment toward those who embody qualities they believe they lack. But this supposed inferiority is actually your psyche's way of avoiding the responsibility that comes with claiming your own power. Feeling small is easier than facing the terrifying possibility that you could be great. Nietzsche's philosophy reveals that your inferiority complex is not evidence of inadequacy, but proof that you've been living according to values that were never yours to begin with. What you call humility is often cowardice. What you call respect is often self-betrayal. What you call realism is often the refusal to embrace your potential. What follows will expose how slave morality has infected your consciousness and show you how to reclaim the will to power that lies dormant beneath your feelings of inadequacy. At the end of each section, you'll receive specific actions to begin transforming your relationship with your own strength immediately. The slave morality that controls your mind. You've been programmed to believe that feeling inferior is virtuous, that putting yourself last shows good character, and that claiming your worth is somehow selfish or arrogant. You praise humility while secretly despising your own powerlessness, and you've convinced yourself that smallness is a spiritual achievement rather than psychological imprisonment. Nietzsche identified two fundamental moral systems that govern human behavior: master morality and slave morality. Master morality creates values from a position of strength and self-determination. This is good because I say it is good. Slave morality, however, defines itself entirely in reaction to what masters value. This is evil because they do it. Therefore, the opposite must be good. When you feel inferior to someone, you're operating from slave morality. You've made their success evidence of your failure, their confidence proof of your inadequacy, their achievements a measurement of your worthlessness. You've given them the power to determine your value simply by existing in their presence. Nietzsche wrote, "The noble type of man feels himself to be the determiner of values." But slave morality teaches you to look outside yourself for validation, to measure your worth against others' accomplishments, and to find virtue in self-denial rather than self-creation. You've been taught that feeling inferior is humble, that diminishing yourself is noble, that your pain somehow makes you more moral. The person trapped in slave morality believes suffering is redemptive and weakness is virtuous. They find identity in victimhood and meaning in martyrdom. They would rather feel righteous in their inferiority than risk the responsibility that comes with claiming their power. Your feelings of inferiority are not accurate assessments of your worth. They are symptoms of a moral framework that benefits others at your expense. You've been taught to worship what you lack rather than cultivate what you possess. List 3 people who make you feel inferior. Next to each name, write down the values they represent that you've been taught to admire. Ask yourself, are these actually your values, or have you inherited them from a system designed to keep you small? How hidden resentment poisons your soul. You smile and congratulate them on their success while something toxic churns in your stomach, a mixture of admiration and hatred that makes you feel ashamed of your own thoughts. You find yourself secretly hoping they'll fail, then immediately feel guilty for having such thoughts because you've been taught that good people don't think this way. This internal war between your genuine feelings and your moral expectations is slowly destroying your capacity for authentic emotion. Nietzsche identified a specific kind of psychological poison that comes from feeling powerless, a festering resentment that's different from simple anger or jealousy, which are honest emotions that can be expressed and resolved. This is the slow burn of suppressed rage mixed with self-hatred for feeling that rage in the first place. When you feel inferior to someone, you develop what Nietzsche called the morality of the weak. You begin to view their strengths as moral failings. Their confidence becomes arrogance, their success becomes selfishness, their happiness becomes superficiality. You transform your inability to achieve what they have into evidence of your superior moral character. This hidden resentment creates what Nietzsche termed the inversion of values. Instead of admitting you want what they have, you convince yourself that not having it makes you better. Instead of working to develop similar qualities, you decide those qualities are somehow corrupt. You make virtues out of your limitations and find righteousness in your bitterness. The person consumed by this resentment cannot create new values because they're too busy defining themselves in opposition to others. They become reactive rather than creative, spending their energy criticizing rather than building, finding identity in what they're against rather than what they're for. This toxic emotion is the spiritual suicide of the creative soul. It transforms your natural drive toward growth and achievement into a weapon of self-destruction, making you an enemy of your own potential. Notice when you feel that bitter mixture of admiration and resentment toward someone. Instead of judging yourself for these feelings, ask, what quality do they possess that I've been afraid to develop in myself? The will to power you've been denying. You've been taught that wanting power is evil, that ambition is selfish, and that the desire to dominate your circumstances makes you a bad person. So you've spent years suppressing the very force that could liberate you from your feelings of inferiority, convincing yourself that powerlessness is somehow more virtuous than strength. Nietzsche understood that the will to power is not about dominating others. It's about mastering yourself and your circumstances. It's the fundamental drive to grow, create, overcome obstacles, and express your unique potential in the world. Every living thing possesses this drive, but humans are the only creatures capable of turning it against themselves through moral self-condemnation. Your feelings of inferiority exist because you've been denying your will to power. You've been taught to admire weakness, celebrate victimhood, and find meaning in suffering rather than in strength. You've learned to apologize for taking up space instead of claiming the territory you need to flourish. Nietzsche wrote, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." But most people interpret this backwards. They think suffering itself creates strength, when actually strength is what you develop by refusing to be destroyed by suffering. The will to power is not about avoiding difficulty. It's about transforming obstacles into opportunities for growth. The person who constantly feels inferior has redirected their will to power inward, using it to diminish themselves rather than to build themselves up. They've become masters of self-limitation, experts at finding reasons why they can't succeed, virtuosos of their own defeat. Your will to power has not disappeared. It's been corrupted into the will to remain small, the will to stay safe, the will to avoid the responsibility that comes with genuine strength. You've become powerful at being powerless, masterful at being mediocre. Identify one area where you've been making yourself smaller to avoid threatening others. This week, deliberately expand into that space and notice the resistance, both from others and from your own conditioning. The power within your inferiority complex. Your inferiority complex is actually your authentic self fighting to emerge from beneath layers of inherited shame and borrowed values. What you call weakness is often strength that's been misdirected, power that's been turned against itself instead of channeled toward creation. The person who no longer feels inferior has stopped measuring themselves against others and started creating their own standards of excellence. They've discovered that true power comes not from defeating others, but from becoming so uniquely yourself that comparison becomes irrelevant. Your supposed weakness is the raw material of your transformation.